On the first speaker from Rason Kuti Hall. Kuti Hall, make some noise. So now we'll be having the first speaker from Lord Seda Hall. Sultan Ayodele Habibullah. Put your hands together for Sultan Ayodele Habibullah as he comes on stage.
This speech should have started with "a great man once said," but it is obvious that for every opinion, no matter how ridiculous, there is a saying from a great man or a report from a state that in the exercise of a citizen's rights, everyone shall be subject to limitations with the purpose of securing the rights of other people. Put simply, for every right, there is a limitation. Today's topic understands this. Hence, the use of the word "should," which means today's debate is not even about the law, rather the rationality behind the law itself. So when my opponents come to tell you that certain countries allow prisoners to vote, or that a certain court in Nigeria approved it, tell them that allowing prisoners to vote might sound like a great idea, but it is definitely not rational. To examine rationality, we need to consider three factors: desirability, necessity, and importance. On desirability, according to a study made by the Pew Research Center, the minimum Consequently, their right to expression through voting is suspended. Therefore, allowing prisoners to vote goes against the very principle of democracy. Ladies and gentlemen, the necessity of a thing is determined by its inevitability. My opponents might be of the belief that allowing prisoners to vote will enhance political participation. Sounds reasonable, but definitely challengeable. According to the United Nations Organization, political participation is much more than just voting. It involves other important processes such as political association, campaigning, joining political parties, and holding government offices. Prisoners cannot perform all this, as they cannot even be around free citizens for that long. So to just equate voting with political participation is but a great responsibility that is underlined by trust. There is a reason 10-year-olds are not allowed to vote. It's because they cannot be trusted enough to make the right decision. Please, this does not in any way make them second-class citizens. Now, shall we allow people who have violated the trust of their communities to participate in a trusted process of voting to determine who rules the general populace? Ladies and gentlemen, trust goes both ways, and imprisonment is the government's way of saying that prisoners have a second chance at regaining our trust. Activity that is underlined by trust sounds like a great idea, but it is definitely not rational. In conclusion, today's debate has clearly shown that allowing prisoners to vote is not desirable, it is not necessary, and it's certainly not important. Great men, we understand your stance today, but the fact remains that emotional movement might sound like a great idea, but they are definitely not rational. I would have said my work here is done, but today's debate concludes in the rebuttal round. From the only one known for his fame, Sultan Ayodele Habibullah is my name.
Me, I know the cap, me, I know the fun. My energy is high, what the fuck?
Keep those hands rolling.
Like me, only honey.
For the first speaker from Loteda Hall. DJ, bring it down. DJ, bring it down. Moving on, we have the second speaker from Ransom Kuti Hall. Put your hands together for Ayo Salako Rehobos as he comes on stage.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are here today to debate an important topic. Should prisoners be allowed to vote? Yes, and I will give two relevant reasons to back up this claim. One, enfranchisement recognizes that prisoners remain citizens while incarcerated and marks their inclusion in society. Without the right to vote, they are in a state of civil death, which, as the European Court of Human Rights said in Hearst versus United Kingdom, is inappropriate for any modern society committed to the principles of democracy and equality. Participation in the democratic process ensures civic responsibility for all, reminding prisoners that citizenship comes with obligations, benefits, and burdens. 2. Nigeria's National Bureau of Statistics, in a report, covertly denied of the right to vote, as one is not guilty of a crime until declared so. On the flip side, my opponent arguments as to why prisoners should not vote. They may claim that when one on the rights of others, he or she forgoes his or her own rights. This argument fails to take into consideration the significant number of minor crimes or crimes that are mala prohibita, that is, crimes that are not wrong in themselves but simply so because they are prohibited by law. Concocted arguments like why not commit crimes since there is little punishment, but prisonstudies.org notes that the occupancy of Nigerian prisons is 46.8% above the total capacity, meaning that some, even though not convicts, have lost the right to vote. Dear opponents, being in prison is already punishment enough. If this argument seeks access to our mind, Yoruba would say, Ori bibe koni ogun, ori fifo. Cutting off one's head isn't the solution to a headache. We don't scrap rights because of obstacles to actualizing them. When this seeks access to our minds, my lords, the answer remains access denied. They have argued that those who commit felonies have broken the social contract and thus lost the right to participate in a civil society. Dear audience, the rebuttal to this point is in my first speaker speech. Dear opponents, you may wish to consult it for further understanding. When these ones who call themselves lords try to deny prisoners access to voting today, then they should be the ones who are told in today's debate, lords, access denied.
Jam your hands together for the second speaker from Ransom Kuti Hall, Ayo Salako. Put your hands together. If you're from Kuti Hall, put your hands together. Now we're going to have the second speaker from Loteda.
Today's debate is about allowing people who are not free because they are imprisoned and people who are not fair because they have disobeyed the law to participate in free and fair transmissions, lectures, and any other similar means as controlled by the administration. Simply put, all the informations prisoners have access to are controlled by those overseeing them, which means prisoners will only know what they are allowed to know. This goes against the integrity of the electioneering process as reported by a study to vote for a particular political party. Furthermore, my opponents may argue that not allowing prisoners to vote can be used as suppression, especially for mass incarceration of people of a particular race. This is just as ridiculous as saying that there is a voter. So my opponents should know that their fight today is the efficiency of the justice system. After all, schooling will not be legalized in a hall of residence just because the system of room allocation is inefficient. Again, my opponents may argue that allowing prisoners to vote will promote rehabilitation and social inclusion, community rehabilitation. So you see, the problem of social exclusion and rehabilitation does not even require prisoners to vote. Allowing prisoners to vote based on this shaky probability is just as ridiculous as saying, although there are 5 entrances into this hall, we still need to dig a hole through the roof for people to come in and go out. Ridiculous. Not be allowed to vote. Ladies and gentlemen, when a person commits a crime, must be offered bail. The person must be offered bail, and only when a court of law denies the person of bail does the person become a prisoner awaiting trial. So, in a publication, amount of evidence stacked against them, or because the severity of the crime is way too high. So in their case, it is not innocent to be proven guilty, but guilty to be proven innocent. Finally, people who have caused out tears should not be allowed to vote for change. From the only hall known for its fame, Oyelo Onu Michael Kayode is my name, and even that cannot change.
Better or please make some noise for your speaker.
Not intentional, feel the pressure now when you come to my face. Come to my face. See as I spray the dollar now, that's intentional, international, unconventional grace. Conventional grace. It goes down when my G's connect. No disconnect.
1 minute. Please welcome Okusoya Goodness.
Ladies and gentlemen, we work at this analogy. What of Musa that they will give 500 naira and will vote for whosoever given the 500 naira? Now, voting is never an option of trust. Trust was never the issue. The issue is always citizenship. So the reason a man can vote is citizenship. Never that voting cannot cause any harm to anybody. Also, they said that prisoners have psychological problems, but we also emphasize in our speech that some of these prisoners write in newspapers. If prisoners are so informed to write in newspapers, it means that it is not all prisoners that have psychological damage. So we cannot say that because of some people, all prisoners should not vote. Also, they said that government still cater for prisoners. However, this is wrong, because I already said in my speech that prisoners have so little political power, and they are victimized and killed in poorly managed facilities. So this point does not matter. Thank you very much.
Sultan Ayodele Habibla.
My opponent tried to squeeze their style crime becoming a criminal is not an identity, so it is right to not allow criminals to vote. Also, the way they mentioned about racial incarceration, that there are more blacks in prison than there are whites, so not allowing prisoners to vote means you are not allowing blacks to vote. However, there are more men in prison than there are women, so not allowing prisoners to vote does not in any way make sense to say that we are not allowing men to vote. Also, they made mention of the fact that you can only control it. So whether you are serving time in Agodi prison or the best prison that exists in the United States, information that will come across to you will still be controlled, and this reduces the integrity of electionary process as reported by University of Oregon. Also, they made mention of points that people serving time are innocent, but what they should fight against is inefficiency of justice system. Finally, great men, it is done.
Please, can we put our hands together for all the speakers that just spoke for this round? So we have a quick giveaway to do before we move on from Delish Kilishi. What you need to do is to send a WhatsApp text to the number I'm about to call out, and then the first person he responds to will just come up here with proof at 10463063.
Send a WhatsApp message to that number and you stand a chance to win this delicious kilishi from Delish Kilishi.
Before we move on to the next round, we have about 8 tickets from the program Bounce to give out. So we'll be giving out.
Anybody?
The oldest hall of residence. Anybody?
Should I call on anybody? Oldest hall in the University
Who
of
is
Ibadan.
who is bold enough to come up here?
Oldest hall. Can you come forward?
She's coming.
Looking at my drip, looking at your drip. Whoa, mommy, look at me.
Oldest hall in the University of Ibadan. The answer.
Swinging side to
Oldest
side,
hall.
and I'm killing that. Whoa,
Oldest hall.
so fine.
Belambi hall.
Is she correct?
She says she wanna.
Is she correct? No.
Lean, hit you.
So what is the correct answer?
Oldest hall in the University of Ibadan.
Did you say ABH? Which is it?
Ẹni pé ẹ sọ pé kí ni? What's the full name?
Kenneth Melambi. Kenneth Melambi.
Culture. Nobody knows it here.
Is there anybody that can answer it? We have just one more ticket to give out now.
What hall are you from? What hall are you
Okay,
from?
let me give you another
What hall are you
question.
from?
How many faculties were involved in Jowo? If it is not 15, I'll come and collect the ticket later. Thank you very much. But hold on to it for now. Okay, so moving on to the next round of the debate between Alexander Brown Hall, the Energy Hall. If you're from Alexander Brown Hall, make some noise.
I mean, I want all. Or should I say the only living man?
They are going to come after you. Don't give the wrong title to the wrong person.
I've not even called the name of the other. I say no.
So they are going against Nnamdi Azikiwe Hall. Alright, so I have been told to move this round of debate. The next round of debate will actually be between Queen Elizabeth Hall and Obafemi Awolowo. Sorry. Keep your energy.
Reason why.
We're almost there. Okay. So the debate between Queen.
If you're from Queen Elizabeth Hall, let me hear you say yeah. It's like they're not much here. If you're from Obafemi Awolowo Hall, let me hear you say yeah.
That's right.
Awesome.
So they'll be debating on the topic, people should be legally required to get vaccines. Before we go into it, okay, so the first speaker, we'll be beginning the debate right away. The first speaker from Queen Elizabeth II Hall is none other than Ezeboiro Lois. Please put your hands together for her. She comes forward.
Ms. L will write here those ideologies and cleanse her system of all illogicalities, beginning with treatment at the least possible cost. Ms. L, here's a glass of water for you. The principle of legalizing a concept on ethical grounds is based primarily on the significance of the harm prevented at the least possible cost to the individual. Craig O noted that vaccination is a simple, safe, and effective way of protecting you against harmful diseases before you come in contact with them. Note the terms simple, safe, and effective protection. So if all these benefits come at almost no cost to the individual, what harm could that possibly and the like to encourage people to get vaccinated rather than mandatory measures? But audience, even when they quote reports that countries where vaccination is mandatory do not often reach better coverage than similar countries where there are no legal obligations, know that they advocate for a higher cost than is necessary. Here's a classic example according to the involved legislation. Recorded about 500 to 1,000 children getting paralyzed every day for 21 whole years. Do the math and you have an entire generation of promising minds crippled by the laissez-faire approach to ensuring good health and well-being. I implore you to calculate the cost implications of such a loss to the individuals go well naturally. Ms. Ao, here's a cup of advice for you. The rate of compliance with vaccination schedules is often too low to confer herd immunity, which is an indirect way of protecting an entire population from infections and not just those vaccinated. In a research article titled Free Riding Behavior in Vaccination, before long, herd immunity becomes herd vulnerability. Ms. Ao's condition has her unintelligibly quoting variations of the right to private and family life. Dearest friends, let's handle these fruits and fibers. First, this right is a qualified right and is subject to limitations for reasons and conditions previously laid down. With this right, when it is in accordance with the law, is necessary in a democratic society and is for the protection of health or rights and freedoms of others. So you see that even the instruments necessary for protecting our basic human rights allows room for mandatory vaccination. Ms. Ao believes that mandatory measures are violently in place in varying degrees across countries as entry requirements into learning institutions, part of employment criteria, and travel requirements. Which is why UI demanded your immunizations after this debate will shamefacedly sneak into immunization centers to get their papers in order for a travel pass. So on the final note, esteemed audience, vaccination is a public health pursuit for the general good. And the law is in the hands of the government to serve as an instrument for promoting the general good. If the general good is of as much importance as Ms. Ao's health is to me, then you agree with me that people should be legally required to get vaccines for the general good. I am Ezebiro Lois Ifechukwu Amaka, residing in Queen Elizabeth II Hall.
Clap those hands together for the first speaker from Queen Elizabeth II Hall. Demilade.
Ladies and gentlemen, the topic for today's debate is not whether people should receive vaccines or not, neither is it whether vaccines are good or bad, but whether people should be legally required to take vaccines. My opponents would come here to appeal to your emotions on why people should be legally required to get vaccine. However, the most effective way to stay immune from their fallacious arguments is to be injected with sound, logical arguments. This I have come to administer, and I shall be doing so using 3 shots. First shot, people should not be legally required to take vaccines. Rather, they should be adequately sensitized on the essence of being vaccinated. Second shot, forcing vaccines down people's throats amounts to a violation and restriction of their individual autonomy. Third short, making vaccines legally required is administratively impossible. First short, people should not be legally required to take vaccines. Rather, they should be adequately sensitized and encouraged on the nature and importance of them to get vaccinated. To require, according to the Merriam-Webster dictionary, means to impose a compulsion on someone to do something. Note the word compulsion. Simply put, what my opponents have come to feed us with is that people should be compelled to take vaccines. Ladies and gentlemen, encouragement with adequate education rather than compulsion with the threat of sanction is a better COVID-19 vaccine. The reasons for this, according to usnews.com on July 15, 2021, include misinformation, concern about the side effects, and lack of trust in the vaccine. Believes that the vaccine represents the Antichrist. Thus, if my opponents are so concerned about everyone getting vaccinated, they should channel their energy towards sensitization and individual autonomy. According to an article titled Vaccination Abstention and the Principle of Autonomy, Desmonda Lawrence defined the right to autonomy as respect for a person's right and capacity to make decisions about healthcare and medical treatment for themselves and for those under their guardianship. This means that people should be able to independently decide whether to get vaccinated or not. Audience, the moment the government starts deciding personal issues such as vaccination for us is the moment our bodies cease to be ours. We will then become instances of public health. However, if these vaccines are so effective and protective, these should not even be accepted by vaccines. Third short, people should not be legally required to take vaccines due to the inadequate supply of vaccines. Ladies and gentlemen, now let us bring these arguments home to Africa. Decide whether to get vaccinated or not. This executive order would be administratively impossible because according to the World Health Organization, in 2018, Africa still lags behind other regions of the world in access to vaccines, and more than 30 million children in Africa still suffer from vaccine-preventable diseases every year. Hence, make connected elites and the poor unknown masses as against giving priority to those who actually need and want the vaccines. For the rights, freedoms, and autonomy of persons, I am not an anti-vaxxer. I am only advocating that vaccines should not be legally charmed together. Elizabeth II Hall, Olabisi Owadayo. Put your hands together for Olabisi Owadayo. To be fair, we are not children. But to be fair, we are not children. To be fair, make decision based on subjective feelings. Now join me, ladies and gentlemen, to objectively consider this analogy. Its parents then rise to their responsibility to chart a course of action that will guarantee a reversal of this occurrence. In the same ways, they would prefer to use drugs, nose masks, sanitizers instead of vaccines. But the government, just like the authority figure of Aje's parents, United Kingdom, that states must take appropriate steps to guarantee the safety of those within its jurisdiction. So the government seems to overall pick the right path. But still, my opponents will be of the opinion that enlightenment is the way. However, let them know involved in extracurricular activities, because we know that getting good grades in written test is not just the way. In the same way, simultaneously to effect fast and effective results. So on to the applicants to protect their own. So they must enforce measures to get their son in check, infringe on your rights, but to protect your right to live a healthy and fulfilled life. So you can understand that when my opponents we have public health status on the hands of private individuals, even if it will end up claiming many lives. Elizabeth II, I am Owadayo Olabisi. Olabisi Owadayo. Queen Elizabeth
Okay. Moving forward, we're going to have
If you ask me whether vaccination is one of the most effective solutions to health challenges globally, I might agree. However, when regardless of what their choice is, well, that's when I throw out my wig and invite them to the ring, hoping they'd have a rethink about their stance, because the two questions I'm about to be made mandatory. According to the Center for Disease Control and Prevention, CDC, no vaccine is actually 100% safe or effective for everyone. Be legally required, not knowing what will happen to their own bodies if vaccines are forced down their throats. The recent COVID-19 vaccine sheds more light on my thoughts in a briefing with the Punch Nigeria that Nigeria has recorded a total of 6,746 COVID-19 side effect cases since its commencement. 747th person. After having an understanding of this, it is only humane that people should be allowed to choose their pain if it is outweighed by the doctored view of theirs. Brings us to the second question that I, my opponent, and even this audience should be asking ourselves: should the principle of informed consent to medical procedures be thrown under the carpet? Informed consent, according to emedicinehealth.com, means that doctors will give you information about a particular treatment or test in order for you to decide whether or not you wish to undergo such treatment or test. In other words, if anyone in this audience wants information about a vaccine and finds out that the benefit of such vaccine is outweighed by the risk, he or she can either accept or refuse and choose other preventive measures as he or she deems fit. However, what my opponents are clamoring for is that unlike this civilized practice, the government choice. Finally, ladies and gentlemen, to reiterate, today's topic isn't whether vaccination is good or bad, but whether it should be imposed. And based on this and of fitted tight, I step out of this ring with my affirmative stance that no, people should never be legally required to take vaccines.
Can we put our hands together once again? So let's welcome the speaker that will be doing the rebuttal.
3 points. That when vaccines are legally required, it is administratively impossible, and there are other options such as enlightenment, and vaccination inadequacy would be a major problem. First off, it is not possible First off, it is not impossible to ensure that vaccination is legally required administratively, because there are already restrictions on basic services such as admission requirements, travel requirements, and even part of employment criteria, increasing the rate of vaccination in an entire population. But we're saying that in order to sustain the vaccination rate, with legislation to ensure that vaccination sustainability is achieved. Thank
For the speaker from Obafemi Awolowo Hall.
Ladies and gentlemen, my opponent's argument, although well thought, has been ultimately baseless, as their points are contradictory to well-stated facts. In my efficacy and effectiveness of vaccines, no vaccine is 100% effective. A small percentage of people are not protected after vaccination, and for others, the public's wealth, and for the greater good, vaccines have to be administered. However, I will have them know that according to the National Vaccine Information Center, in a speech presented to be injected with biological products of unknown toxicity today, then there will be no limit on which individual freedoms the state can take away in the name of greater good.
Fast back at the beat, by the way.
Put our hands together for all the speakers that have spoken in this round.
DJ, bring it down.
Can we put our hands together for all the speakers that have spoken in this round? Responded to on WhatsApp. He has responded. Calm down now. We don't say come to the stage. We don't say we like to know. We want to know. That's the way it is to win, no. Okay, so to give out another bounce ticket, this time our question is anybody?
The boy fine, I got the balance. See the motor we back for garage. We come to party harder. To the club.
How many?
6
What edition is this?
This is 7th edition.
The whole chairman of Nnamdi Azikiwe Hall. That one is even a joke question. The full name. It's plenty. Put your hands together for him. It's right. Data to be won, and of course we have Chef Cabs voucher. All you have to do is register on Crowd. We're almost there. We're getting there. Okay, so we have F&K savings as well, 1,500 naira. When you register on F&K savings, please don't forget to use the promo code JOWAR to register
for immediate payment. So let's be clear. An advocacy for prostitution without any ban is an advocacy for all forms of paid indiscriminate sexual activities as stated under section 31 subsection 3A of the Child Rights Act. So over the age of those that can engage in prostitution, and child prostitution is bound to happen. Audience, prostitution should be banned out illnesses on prostitutes, which is why 1 in every 2 prostitutes is currently living with a mental health and 71,000 Nigerians. Evidently, the last thing we need is an advocacy for a profession that works in our mental health empowerment, cause endangerment, and make us meant. So we see it is not for our betterment. Judges, as a result of the relaxation of the ban on prostitution, this direct immigration in Nigeria reforms the harm to the person. However, monitoring prostitutes don't take GS 107 as pages 9 and 4. So just like Barcelona without Messi, that point is weak. Finally, my opponent will be missing the topic with consenting that exists. So, if my opponent comes to speak now, welcome my opponent as he comes to support a ban on prostitution.
Alexander Brown.